All right, thank you. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming to this webinar, and many thanks to all speakers who accepted our invitation to come and give presentations in this webinar. And UNESCO ICBA is very pleased to have the privilege of your time dedicated to this webinar around the theme School Reopening, Knowledge and Experience Sharing for Teachers in Africa, the case of Rwanda, which is one webinar in a series of webinars that UNESCO ICBA is organizing. The webinar will last for 1 hour and a half, and the webinar will start with the welcome and opening remarks from the director of the UNESCO International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa, followed by presentations by different speakers and panelists. Then questions that will be raised in the chat room will be addressed. And finally, we will move to the closing remarks, which will be provided by the senior program coordinator at ICBA. So if you have not yet done so, we would like to invite you to type your name. Everyone who is participating, we would like to invite you to type your name and the organization you are representing in the chat room. To enter the chat room, please click on the message icon at the bottom of the webinar board. Anytime you have a question, please type it in the chat room so that the chat moderator correct it and they address it to the appropriate speakers. And I wish you a wonderful time in this webinar. And maybe a reminder I want to give to everyone, whenever you are not speaking, please make sure your microphone and your video are switched off. So please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. And when you are invited to speak, then you will have to unmute your microphone. And now we move to the opening remarks by Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, the director of the UNESCO International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa. Yumiko, the floor is yours. Yumiko, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, my mouse was stuck. So, okay, thank you very much, Bernard, and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in your busy schedule. My name is Yumiko. I work for International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa, the UNESCO's Institute for Teacher Development in Africa. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected our lives and our education in the continent since March, April this year, and ICBA has been running webinars on the subject since then. In the face of school closures, countries have been making remarkable efforts in introducing or strengthening existing distance education through various modalities to enable learning continuity. ICBA has worked together with partners in China and also Moscow to come up with ODLTI, Open Distance Learning for Teachers in Africa, which helps teachers and university lecturers to work on distance learning. It is a self-learning course which you can do at your convenient time. Please visit our website. The course is free, and on completion, there's a digital certificate. As countries are preparing for school reopening, now we are sharing some experience from countries. We had Senegal sharing their experience last time, but today we have Rwanda. I'm really looking forward to learning. In the preparation for school reopening, teachers and school leaders may be concerned about how to organize learning, environments, timetable, and pedagogical activities in a way that are safe and secure and that prevent any possible spread of the virus among children and the teachers. And moreover, both teachers and the students might have been worried and might have been affected not only physically, but also mentally. So we have to be compassionate and when we are opening the schools for both children and the teachers. The webinar may help answer some of these questions, which were on the concept note you have received. What sanitary gestures should be adopted? How can safe classroom arrangement and the school routines be established to ensure social distancing? How can the curriculum be adjusted to enable learning from anywhere that learners are located? What learning objectives should be prioritized? How can the school infrastructure be upgraded or adjusted to support safe return to schools? And finally, what kind of psychosocial support would learners need and how should it be provided to them? And also what kind of psychosocial support the teachers are in need. So this webinar shares experience from colleagues from Rwanda to strengthening the capacity of teachers and teacher educators in reopening schools in other countries in Africa. Sharing knowledge and experience and lessons among the countries is the best way for us to learn. This webinar deals with issues related to reopening of schools under guidance of the questions raised before. Now, I would like to thank our colleagues from Rwanda to join us and share with us the experience you have in reopening schools. Murakoze Siane. I look forward to learning from the experience in Rwanda. So thank you very much again for participants and the colleagues from Rwanda. That's all from me. Back to you, Bernard.
Thank you, Yumiko, for that introduction, a vivid introduction to this webinar and the other webinars UNESCO Ikiba has been hosting. And in your introduction, you highlighted the ODFTA, and I would like to draw attention to all participants that a colleague has shared a link to the introduction to online and distance learning for teachers in Africa, the ODA course. Please join the course and engage with the course. It provides a very basic introduction to online learning teaching, and it may be very helpful in your, especially when your institution is planning to adopt open distance and e-learning for the delivery of education in a safe way. So now let's move on with our schedule. And we move to different speakers' presentations. And we start with Dr. Florier Tsaganumana, who is the current principal of the University of Rwanda College of Education. The University of Rwanda College of Education is the only public institution that is mandated to educate teachers or to train teachers, to provide pre-service teachers, preparing teachers for who will be teaching in the secondary education across the country. And Dr. Florier, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bernard. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Okay, so I think you can start displaying my PowerPoint. So you have already introduced me. I don't need to introduce myself again. So to start, I thank you for inviting me to participate in this webinar and of course to share the experience of the University of Rwanda. And I thank very much Yumiko for the opening remark of this workshop. I think also Rwanda has a lot to share in terms of mitigating the COVID-19 pandemic and in the education sector. So do you still hear me? Because I can continue speaking while you are not listening.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay,
Please
so
proceed.
now I can go ahead. So can we go to the first slide? Just is the cover slide, but I want to start from it. So my presentation today, which will be very brief, is about facilitating learning amid of COVID-19 pandemic, and we are sharing the experience from University of Rwanda And more examples will be related to our College of Education, whose mission is to train secondary school teachers. So can you go to the next? Okay, so just a brief overview of the University of Rwanda, because I'm sure that many of you are not familiar with this university. It is a university which was formed following a merger of the public higher learning institution that we had before 2019. No, before 2013. So currently the university is composed of 60 colleges, and the colleges are specialized in terms of the teaching and the research that is conducted. So we have the College of Arts and Social Science, College of Agriculture, College of Business and Economics, College of Science and Technology, and our college, of course. So can we go to the next? That's the structure of our university and our college included. So early in March, when after the pandemic, the COVID-19 disease was declared as a pandemic, then all schools and university doors were open. So we stopped immediately campus-based teaching and learning activities in mid-March, and the students were given the order to vacate the campus and to go to their homes. However, we are having international students, and they couldn't travel because the borders were closed and flights were also not operational. Then we request to register so that we know how many they are and where they are staying, so that we can have a quick intervention when need be. However, though we closed the doors, we encourage students to continue doing self-learning, and especially using online resources. Can we go to the next? So in the meantime, the academic staff did not stop. The university immediately designed the program comprising a series of workshops, allowing the academic staff to upload the instructional material on our e-learning platform. So the university provided some guideline on how this exercise should be done. The university nominated the task force members to support the exercise, and we were cautioned to respect the intellectual property as we use the online resources to integrate in our course material. And of course, to monitor the work that is being done, monitoring system was put in place. So this is to mention that though the university has closed the door to stop face-to-face teaching on campus, teaching didn't really stop because students continued learning, and lecturers also continued preparing the material. So this was to anticipate in case this lockdown of schools continues, that an alternative to learn was going to be adopted, which is online learning. And later on, I will show that now we have opened and we are using blended learning. So can we go to the next? Okay, so of course, before this lockdown, we were having our e-learning platform, but it was not intensely or regularly used. Now that we are applying the blended learning and lecturers have prepared material on this platform, so it is functional. Lecturers have been trained on how to use it, and as well as students, because students also are accessing material on this platform. So they were trained, not all, but some of them that we call champion student in online learning, which also will assist their colleague in case they are having some issues. Of course, assistance to the student is not among themselves only, but lecturer also, whenever students are experiencing technical problem, then lecturers are supporting. Can we go to the next? As we are adopting the online teaching and learning, of course, we haven't to lose the quality. So quality is ensured because we have a center dedicated to online learning. Our center that is called the CODEL, Center for Open Distance and E-Learning. It existed before, it wasn't created because of the pandemic. And we were also having experience to conduct distance learning for our program to train teachers who were teaching without qualification. So modules were designed and instructions were given on how we have to structure our content to be uploaded in the platform. So can we go to the next? So because our program that we run were normally face-to-face, we needed to have authorization from the Ministry of Education to be able to formally recognize the online teaching and learning as one way of conducting learning, which can also be recognized and lead to the degree award. So with that perspective, we contacted the Higher Education Council, which is the regulatory body for higher education in Rwanda, to approve the minimum requirement so that we can start conducting remote learning. So that has been done, and we are grateful for the authorization that we got. Owing to it, we have been able to reopen the university since last week, since Monday, 19 October 2020. Of course, we didn't start with all the students. Rather, we started with the finalists, year 3, 4, and 5, according to the nature of the program. Can we go to the next? Of course, what were the guidelines to be able to reopen? So the university has gone through a number of processes and many meetings, and we decided to open, provided that a campus committee for COVID-19 and the reopening plan are ready first, and then the establishment of guideline and measure against COVID are put in place and communicated to the university community members. And we made sure that we installed required health facilities, especially hand washing facility in all UR campuses. And of course, in classrooms arrangement and where students meet, for instance, at restaurant and in their accommodation, we have to ensure that physical and social distancing measures are respected. Can we go to the next? Okay, so about the establishment of the committee, normally that committee comprises members from the university or college's staff. I have to mention that each college has a COVID-19 task force committee, and that committee, of course, comprises the staff of the college. We include also student representative, and we include a medical doctor from the nearby hospital. Here, in our case, Tirukara College of Education, we are working closely with Gahini District Hospital, and we include also members from local governance, especially Umurenge or sector. So that committee has, of course, a mission to follow up the enforcement of measures, to revise some timetable, and look for available spaces and how it can be used, and to ensure that there is a conducive learning and teaching environment. Apart from that committee, which is looking at matters concerning the COVID-19, we are also having, of course, student volunteers who are really helping much to ensure that students are respecting measures against COVID-19 pandemic, such as wearing mask wherever they are, and respecting social distancing, regularly washing their hand regularly, and all other measures. So we have also posted the messages, posters on the walls in different venues in the campus to ensure that this message is reflected anywhere and all the time, so that students can regularly be reminded that COVID is there, that they have to avoid risk to get contamination. So can we go ahead? So what we are doing currently, that committee has been trained with the motto that we have to protect ourselves, we have to protect our colleagues, and we have to protect the entire community by respecting the measures put forward by the World Health Organization, the measures put forward by the Rwandan government, the measures put forward by the University of Rwanda, and of course other specific measures that can be taken at Rukara, like disinfection of the area, campuses, I mean, where we work, and working with authorities to curb the spread of the pandemic. Can we go to the next? So these are specific facilities that were put in place, like hand wash facilities. Initially, we were using hand sanitizers, but on a long term, that is not sustainable. That's why the university recommended that hand wash facility be constructed near the gate, such that every person who enters inside the campus has to first wash their hands. And these facilities are constructed in different venues in the campus and are distributed. Of course, we didn't completely stop the use of hand sanitizers. Rather, sanitizers are still used. And any person who enters has also to get his or her temperature recorded. That's why the guard are just assisting us with the infrared thermometer to record the temperature of everyone. So whenever, for instance, they find someone with high temperature, which is 37.5, they are suspected as maybe having the COVID. We have planned, we have prepared what we call isolation room. Someone who is suspected should be sent to that isolation and be followed by our nurses and to measure at a given interval the temperature. If it remains high, then the testing can be conducted to know exactly why the temperature is high and the other symptoms that can be associated to the COVID. But luckily, up to now, none has recorded high temperature, and our isolation room have never received any client. Can we go to the next? The physical distancing, of course, because due to the nature of some modules, especially science module, which need laboratory work, we were obliged to call some students to come on campus so that they can be facilitated in learning. So to do that, we have to ensure that social distancing is ensured. You can see that, for instance, we have increased the distance that is between two sittings or two desks so that we avoid contamination. That is also ensured in labs. And besides, we are planning, it is not yet done, to increase the number of garden benches that are outside in the garden that student can use while chatting or just revising the course material together. So you can see that with these pictures, the first picture present a lecturer in front of students. You can see the distance is ensured. The next is a laboratory, a computer laboratory. You can see that we have posted stickers to show this place will be used, this place will not be used. Can we go to the next? So I'm toward the end of my presentation. Just to sum up, you can see, for instance, in the picture on the right with yellow garments, that these are student volunteers who are guiding their colleagues to show them how to hand wash using mobile hand wash facilities that are still in use. You can see that the others are washing their hands as they enter in the campus. So we have, as I have said, put a plan to reopen by starting by finalists year 3 and above. It means that year 1 and year 2 students are still doing online, and when these measures are made easy, or that the threat will not be there as it is now, we can see whether we can call the remaining students to join the university. And we have the COVID-19 task force and student volunteer working. Social distance is ensured. Hand wash facility are there and are operational. And most importantly, we provide accommodation on the campus. So all students that we received are hosted in the campus, apart from some special cases like a student staying in the nearby family and where we think it is safe, and as children with students with young children, they are taken care of because the policy does not allow to host a student who is a parent and their children in the campus. Can we go to the next? So we see, for instance, this pandemic as a threat, but also as an opportunity maybe to innovate and to introduce change in the way we have been teaching and learning at our university. Of course, we have understood the importance of saving lives, and that life for young people really matter because they are the future of our country. We have understood that learning can take place beyond traditional classroom environment. So someone can stay in their residence and still learn and get support. That's why when we reopened, we started blended learning. But we see that there are some challenges, like a student not having essential gadgets to access the material. We need also to involve our stakeholders in education, be it public or private sector, and of course non-governmental organization to support in this mode of learning. So we have seen that we have constructed the hand wash sanitation facility, and we think they will not serve only for the purpose for COVID-19 pandemic, but hand washing will be a culture because infectious diseases are prevalent in our developing countries due to the nature of their climate. So hand wash will be a culture that will continue, and we think that it is being promoted by this pandemic. So next. Okay, so I'm at the end of my presentation. I thank you for your attention. I would be glad to provide clarification where you need. I have to intervene. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Florie, Dr. Florie Nsanganwimana, for that presentation. A lot of best practices really the University of Rwanda has been undertaking to ensure a safe reopening of schools, starting from setting up that COVID-19 task force committee at the college level and involving the local community and the local leaders and the even health workers to also installing those hand washing facilities and moving to online distance learning. And it's very important that you highlight those opportunities brought by COVID-19, including innovation. So thank you so much for this presentation. And there's a lot of to learn from it. And more will be learned in the question and answer session. And before we move
Okay.
on, before we go to the next presentation, I would like to warmly welcome Madame Anne-Therese Ndongujata, who is the director of the UNESCO Liaison Office in East Africa, based in Nairobi. Madame Anne-Therese Ndongujata, it is a great honor and privilege to have you in this webinar. Now we move to the next presentation. We move to the presentation by Dr. Edwidge Kamire, who is a teacher educator at the University of Rwanda College of Education. Dr. Kamire, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Bernard. Yeah, it's my great pleasure also to present as the principal of the College of Education mentioned about the UR in general, and as a teacher at the University of Rwanda College of Education, I'm going to talk about the teacher and teacher trainees protection during and after school reopening. As the pedagogical aspects, my name is Dr. Edwidge Kamire. I'm a lecturer of chemistry at University of Rwanda College of Education. As mentioned by the previous presenter, as you know, since March, we experienced the school closure due to the COVID pandemic in Rwanda. And on our side, as University of Rwanda, remarkable efforts to strengthen the online learning, which was already in place, has been strengthened, and mainly for postgraduate students. Also, as the principal said, with a long time, we are having distance education and the online learning, where we are applying Moodle e-learning platform, and the students who were following distance education, they continue even within this pandemic, they were still running. Only for undergraduate students, which were already gone home, we were encouraged to upload Moodle modules on e-learning. They were already there, but all the lecturers, they were encouraged to use those modules to put them online and to encourage the students to be familiar with the online learning. But there was no e-assessment because some of the students were not able to reach the online learning. Next, please. And because we were now allowed to use online, it means trainings and support on the use of MS Teams for lecturers and university leaders has been done to reinforce the e-learning platform. Before to reopen, some modules that will be taught full online and others that require face-to-face sessions were identified. It is in that fact that the University of Rwanda, after reopening the doors on 19 October 2020, the focus was only on the finalist students like year 3, 4, and 5. Next. Yes, now for the student protection during school reopening, all the students, they are hosted now in the campus. And as the principal also has highlighted it, to ensure all the students are there, there is a registration form that was designed to document the URC community, even other persons who may enter in the campus. So if there is any case, we will be able to track everyone who entered in the campus. The pupil or other workers in the student restaurant, even in their hostels, or they are advised to respect all the protective measures. And no any student is allowed to take meals outside because inside the campus there is a canteen that has everything that can be needed by the student. You know, where there is a university or a school, sport, games, and other recreation are necessary, but at the University of Rwanda College of Education, where I'm teaching, for those games, recreation, or they have to follow the national guidelines. If you want to do a sport, you can run outside alone, but no groups are allowed. Next. Yeah, for also again, the protection of our students. It means, as the principal highlighted, there is the infrared thermometers for each who is entering in the campus. And as you can see on the image, there are some students or other member of URCE where there is a security who are taking the temperature to see if there is no any case that can be tracked. Also, as you can see on the image, there is someone as like a student who is washing the hand, and facilities with hand sanitizers as well as to wash. They were installed in different places before even to reopen the schools or the university. All the students, they are requested to comply with all the measures against COVID because they are reminded many times to wear well the face mask, to wash properly their hands, but also to be far one another, to respect the social distancing between them. And as you know, for us at College of Education, the reopening is focusing only on third-year students. And for those students, we are supposing they have everyone a computer. As you can see on the image, there are students who are doing their work and everyone is having a computer. But in case some do not have the devices to the running materials, they were advised to use nearby campus facilities, or if possible, they have to see how they acquire the devices, because online is prioritized as teaching and learning process. Next. Yes, as you can see, still for our students, we are requesting to maintain social distancing, and we are encouraging them to avoid to share items, as well as to organize some social gathering. You know, where the students are, sometimes they can create some social gathering, but we are emphasizing to them to avoid those social, because they never know, someone can be having a virus, and in the community for students, it cannot be easy if anyone is having some symptoms. So it is in this way also that they are reminded to report any case experiencing of any known symptoms, for example, of COVID-19, for their well-being. Next. Yes, now on the case of lecturers, as I'm one of a lecturer of science, the preventive measures set also, they are followed by all the lecturers. There were different meetings that were organized to discuss on the learning environment, how the timetable can be set, and some pedagogical activities that will be conducted. Also, lecturers, they have to respect the rules before to enter inside the campus. It means they have to wash their hands, to wear the face mask. Also, the temperature is taken for everyone to ensure if everyone is safe. Next. Yes, as you know, we said that we are now using branded learning. And for the branded learning, except some modules like science, where there is practicals who are having some face-to-face sessions, fully online modules, synchronous learning are organized through MS Team. As you can see on the photo, I was delivering an online course with my student of year 3. And also within the timetable, there is a way for lecturers to facilitate and support the students, either using face-to-face or online. But also at URC and as a lecturer of science, we are encouraged to use virtual labs and some simulations. As you can see, there is an image on the side, right side, which is showing like the current in physics, and it can be demonstrated, and you can play and everything. Even if they are there, they are able to understand how the direct current is made and how to measure the intensity and so on. Also, for the opening, it means we have some students within face-to-face, and you can see with the photo, this was a class of biology and chemistry where they were respecting seating arrangement as it was established, and everyone on a desk, and where there is a green tick down is only where a student has to sit. For the e-assessment tools also, they are developed by your Directorate of Teaching and Learning Enhancement within the CODER, as the principal said, also with ICT to implement the use of those tools, avoiding to use papers and so on that can be having some contamination. And after reopening, also, as I'm saying, we have now year 3 students at URCE, but also we have year 4 students who were conducting internship before the closure of schools. For those Year 4 students, they will be following same instruction as other secondary school once he opens. And also, there will be a school attachment mentors that will be trained to help the new internees, because Year 3 students also, this is term 2, but in term 3, they will be their internship. Next. Yeah, here, as you can see, is Dr. Duingoma Matthias, who is the director of the Center for Open Distance and E-Learning. Here, he was conducting a virtual induction for Year 3, as well Year 4 students who are conducting internship, because also Year 3, they will go in this coming November, going for their internship. So he was telling them how they behave during the period and how the online also can be applied for everything. Next. Yeah, before to end my presentation, there are some challenges and recommendations. And as the principal highlighted, there are some internet connectivity for the students who are based in areas without electricity, mainly those who are in Year 1, Year 2, even Year 3, who are only running with online. Also, in our science, as we have large classes, face-to-face practicals in the laboratory, also it requires a lot of time, but we are trying to manage everything smoothly. For the recommendations is to ensure that all the students are able to access online teaching materials. Also, we are encouraging the students to respect the guidelines and the rules set to fight against this pandemic. For ending, thanking you for kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Edwidge Kamire, for sharing that classroom-based experience on how the University of Rwanda have been, providing education, continuing education, at the same time ensuring students' safety, and how different pedagogical activity have been adapted to ensure students continue to learn, whether they are on campus or during their internship. And thank you so much. So now we move to the next presentation by Mr. Alexis Habimana, Deputy Head Teacher at Institut Sainte Famille, Nyamasheke District. Alex, can you hear me?
I'm hearing you.
All right, great. Okay, so you have 5 minutes, please.
So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leonard, for inviting me in this meeting. But I didn't see the slide, please. So I'm Alexis Habineza, as Bernard has said. So I'm going to share with you the teacher experience in school reopening. So next slide. Next slide, please. So the COVID-19 pandemic has made all schools in Rwanda to close their door since March of this year. The measure of preventing this pandemic were given, and we really appreciate our learners how they take COVID-19 into consideration during this tough period of their home stay. So, as Institut Sainte Famille, we are preparing to open. We are sure that learners are doing their best in order to return to school. Institut Sainte Famille has done all the necessary so that all the learners and the teachers will find the school as a safe place to work and prevent the spread of COVID-19 when the schools are open. So next slide, please. So, in the preparation of, so next slide, in the preparation of school opening, teacher may be concerned about how to organize learning environment, timetable, pedagogical activities in a way that are safe and secure to prevent the spread of the virus. So, as our school, also when the school are open again, they have experience on how learning and teaching can be done in a safe environment by protecting our children and teacher against COVID-19. So, teachers in institution family Nyamasheke must use extra times in order to cover all the programs set by lab. Next slide, please.
Henok, are you playing slides? Yeah.
So I'm going to share with you some of the experience teachers may have in preparation of school opening. So in class, the student must sit in a way that there is 1 meter between student and another. Before entering in class, teacher also must ensure that all students are safe. During teaching, teacher must insert measures of preventing COVID in the lesson as cross-cutting issues to enable all learners understand well how they can protect themselves and their schoolmates. Teachers are encouraged to use ICT in teaching and mostly use online lab e-learning platforms. So, as we are waiting for school opening, our school ICT was trained by lab as a trainer on Microsoft Teams software, also trained us on how to use this application. So far, all teachers have created classes on Teams. The next step is to inform students about this software and explain how it works. So, also teacher must wear properly their mask in order to be a good example to students they teach. So, frequently, teacher must wash their hands with water and soap or use alcohol hand sanitizer before teaching takes place. Also, teachers as a good example to the children they teach, they must avoid hand washing and handshaking in order to prevent and mitigate the risk of COVID-19 in school. Teacher must know that no materials teaching are shared between students and teachers. Guide learners on how to respect and implement the measure of preventing COVID-19 given by the Ministry of Health. Next slide, please. So also, teacher must know how to manage time properly because the big challenge all the school may have is the lack of enough time because there is additional times all students enough time to do all things as is planned. For instance, washing hands may take a lot of time. In our school, we have made some preparation in order to reopen by respecting the measure of preventing COVID-19 set by Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health. Such preparation include arrange classroom setting, ensuring 1 meter between one student and another. Also, we constructed washing sanitation that can be refilled periodically. Also, our school designated at least to equip isolation room for suspected case, and also our school posts on the wall the poster that show the nature of how to prevent COVID-19 in our school. Next slide, please. So in brief, in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in our school, when the school are open, our teacher in a decent family Nyamasheke must have enough skills about the measure of preventing COVID-19. We hope that all people in our school are concerned with eradication of the COVID-19, and everyone is required to work hand in hand with others, that there is no continuity of spreading the virus, so that teaching and learning process should take place smoothly. So thank you for listening. So I'm waiting for any clarification.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alex, for sharing experience on how your school is, STC Saint Famille is preparing for school reopening. And we now move to the final presentation by Mr. Theophile Sangano, who is deputy head teacher at the Groupe Scolaire Saint Joseph, Nyamasheke District, Western Province, Rwanda. Theophile, can you hear me?
Yes, please. I'm hearing
All right.
you.
The floor is yours. You have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. As Bernard said, I'm Sangano Theophile, deputy teacher in charge of studies at the Groupe Scolaire Saint Joseph, Nyamasheke, in the Western Province of Rwanda. Now we are going to share experience about school reopening in Rwanda. As you know, schools are closed about 7 months. Now in Rwanda, we are about to reopen our schools. Some measures are taken, and the government has established health guidelines to be followed by all schools for safe reopening with minimum risks. At the school level, especially in our school, Groupe Scolaire Saint Joseph Nyamasheke, we are now ready to receive students by Friday 30th, this October 2020, so that the course may resume on 2nd November this year. In order to prevent and mitigate the risks of COVID-19 spread in schools, the school task force is established to ensure effective implementation and taken measures. It involves teachers, parents, and the health professional well versed in COVID-19 preparedness and response, and one representative of local authorities. You may go to next slide. Thank you. All students, as measures adopted by the school, all students and staff must wear face masks correctly at all times. The school provided the hand sanitizer and provided also washing facilities using clean water and soap to ensure regular hand washing practices before and after leaving school, classes, dining hall, hostels. Because our school is a boarding school, we have hostels for students, playgrounds, or coming in contact with contaminated surfaces. So every student and the staff should be screened before entering school. The school has provided the thermoflash to check body temperature those thermometers use infrared so that it cannot contact a person. Any student or staff with a fever of about 37.5 degrees Celsius and above will not join classes. He or she will be isolated in a separate room to avoid contact with others. Here, 2 rooms are reserved for this purpose. You may go to the next slide. Other measures, we rearrange the classroom settings, ensuring 1 meter distance between a student and another. For example, here, a standard school, a standard classroom has 6.45 over 7.9 meters. This classroom should accommodate maximum of 23 students, 1 per desk. This leads to put students into shift for large classes, because here in Rwanda you can have a class of 40 or 50 students. It is possible. Also, we purchased the additional school materials to avoid sharing teaching aids among students and teachers. If it must be shared, for those materials who are very expensive that a school cannot have more, we decontaminate them after every usage. Here, school organized also training for teachers so that we can use both physical and digital classes to minimize teacher-student contact. By now, teachers are equipped with VST skills so that they can conduct lesson online, among others. The ICT tools we will be using we'll be using Microsoft Teams, Moodle, OneNote for classes. Also for evaluation, we can use Microsoft Forms, Google Forms, and so on. Also, as measures, as COVID-19 affected negatively many families, both teachers and students experienced many problems that affected negatively their lives. There is a number of children left. Some family members has been infected, and the community members are dying with this COVID-19. Some head of families lost their jobs. This situation put students in need of psychosocial support. Here, the school counselor and the other trained teachers are ready to receive a significant number of both teachers and students for guidance and counseling services. Next slide, please. As this COVID-19 pandemic continues to spread worldwide, we want school to reopen. That is the first. We want our students back to school. Teachers are ready. So yes, we are ready to receive our students. Let our school don't be the next place where the next wave of the virus starts, but a safe place for our kids and a good environment for studies. Education is a key for development. Thank you for your kind attention, dear participants.
Thank you, Theophile, for the presentation and the measure your school have put in place, and obviously there will be some clarification provided in the question and answer part of this webinar, which we are entering. Let me check with Ruisi. I can see you in the webinar. Ruisi, have you been able to collect the questions? Ruisi,
yes, hi, Bernard. Yes. Thank you very much, Bernard. I think Marian is also chair with the chair the Q&A session, And I also have some questions from my side. And if Marian has any questions, and she can chip in, and we can ask panelists to have the discussion.
Yes, I do have one question, but Reese, please go ahead first.
Thank you very much, Marian. So the first question is from Yumiko. And Yumiko, I think the question is to Dr. Florian about the champion student. We would like to know more about the selection process of these champion students. And we also want to know, are they volunteer? So it would be great if Dr. Florian could share some more information about the champion students like helping with the online learning. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Florian.
Okay, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Yumiko, for raising this question. To select the e-learning student champion, we used the student council to identify those students who are competent, and we selected those students from each program to ensure balance and equity in this exercise. So most of those students are class representative because they have been elected by their colleagues. So others are identified by their colleagues as competent and motivate the student who can take the lead to assist their colleague once learning online. So this is what I can say. They are not really volunteer, though they volunteer because they don't get any compensation upon the service that they render to the university, the service that is benefiting their colleague students. So that's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Florian. Thank you for your answer. And in addition, I got one comment about the online learning. One participant commented that the e-learning conducted during the lockdown is a really great way, and I hope Africa is going to adopt this culture. So this is a comment from one participant. Marian, do you have other questions from participants?
Yes, thank you, Risi. There's one question, question to the two presenters from University of Rwanda, the College of Education. How can universities and colleges support secondary and primary schools through their leadership, through their example in the safe reopening of schools? Thank you.
Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so can you please come again with the question, because I lost some component and I think they are important. Please come again.
Yes, thank you. So the question was to the two first presenters from the University of Rwanda College of Education. How can universities and colleges like yours better support and reach out to schools like secondary and primary schools with your example of good practices and protocols for other schools to safely reopen?
Okay, so thank you. Now I get it clear. Normally, the University of Rwanda, especially our College of Education, is closely collaborating with Rwanda Education Board, which is in charge of basic education. Basic education is an education from nursery up to secondary. So that partnership allows us to collaborate and to share our best practices. We are, for instance, having our student going to carry out internship. And one of the mission of our student while they are doing internship is, of course, to share this experience, the best practices that we have adopted here at university and the College of Education, and which are working. This is what we are planning to do. And normally we organize outreach activities in schools. We are having some postgraduate students who are used to those activities. Maybe what we need to do is to intensify those outreach communities to primary and secondary school. Maybe the only challenge to do that will be the budget limitation. Otherwise, the framework, the existing framework, the partnership that we have with the Rwanda Education Board and schools allow us to easily share our practices. I have to inform you that whatever is done in the education sector is coordinated at the ministry level, and whatever we practice as the measures to contain the COVID pandemic is shared within education sector, and we have the platform where we share the information. For instance, each month we are having the Ministry of Education review letters, or a kind of newsletter where all those practices are shared, and every stakeholders in education is having access to that information. So practically, maybe if I go back, for instance, whether in school they will have the COVID-19 task force committee. My colleague from Nyamasheke, who's the head teacher or deputy teacher, has highlighted that they have those committee and they involve the local governance, which we appreciate. They are using hand sanitizer, and I think in the long run, they will have to construct hand wash facilities. You understand that in the beginning they didn't plan to construct because there is no budget available, but I think it will be availed in the near future when means are available. And maybe other mode of curriculum implementation, such as e-learning, that will be difficult to implement, partly because of the nature of rural settlement, where most of the learners in the primary and secondary are living in a remote area, but that wouldn't be really a challenge if they were having smartphone and computers to continue learning remotely. But I saw in the chat that one of our colleagues said that some parents have the smartphone and they can be used by their children to learn, but we have to note that not all the parents have the smartphone which can allow learning. There is maybe what I need to mention, apart from maybe using the computer and those other gadgets. The Ministry of Education through Rwanda Education Board and stakeholders have initiated during the lockdown the program of tele-education, where some program were aired through TV and radio, and these program were supporting, of course, children, but we understand that there is a kind of discrimination, because we think that not all the families, especially the very poor one, have access to TV and radio, and we have to think about it. So that learning really is benefiting for those who have those equipment and devices. But again, the Ministry of Education is not considering that as a formal way of learning. Instead, it is just occupying students, and when they will reopen, they will just start teaching as they used to do, so that they don't discriminate any learner in their school system. That's what I can say. Thank you.
I have one more question that it's coming from my side. May I ask? It's also to our colleagues from University of Rwanda.
Yes.
So much knowledge has been created at this time, knowledge of how to cope with chaos and how to cope with COVID. Much knowledge has been created by universities, by schools. I'm wondering, being a college of education, do you think that there would be some new courses that can be created around resilience and innovation, some new courses that use the knowledge of your university, new courses and new ways to create new programs or new certificates? I know it's awfully new. This is all happening in real time, but I'm wondering if there would be new courses to institutionalize this knowledge of emergency education and open distance learning.
Okay, thank you. That is a very good question and maybe an inspiration. As far as I know, we haven't yet thought of making a formal program. However, these practices and knowledge so far created are transferred through the capacity building training. You know that all the leaders in education have been trained about this pandemic and how to deal with it. The best practice are being shared through the training organized for members who are involved in the prevention of this pandemic. So a lot of knowledge really has been created and it is being shared, let's say formally, but not leading to certification. So thank you for raising this certification of this knowledge and practices around the COVID-19 pandemic. So we can think on how maybe it can be integrated in the curriculum. That is the option, because we have some program where this can be easily integrated, but that it can form maybe a separate program is a topic that can be explored together with you, for instance, because we are partnering with UNESCO and other associated institutes and other stakeholders so that we can formalize a program tackling maybe issues of this management of chaos and other phenomenon that can really affect our education system and teaching and learning delivery in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Florian. There is one more question about reducing stigma and discrimination of those who were infected and affected by COVID-19. And I see there's one comment from participant response to this question. So in some schools, there are school counselor and some teachers are also trained for additional assistance. And I would also like to open the floor to other panelists to share experiences about how to deal with the discrimination issue. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Florian, or maybe other panelists, Mr. Alexis, or other panelists.
Okay, so can I go ahead and speak? Sorry, maybe I will take much of the time, but I will try to be brief so that the other can share their ideas.
No, please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so, you know, for instance, I will especially talk about discrimination in the way we have started teaching. We have invited the student, especially those doing mathematics and science, to come, because those subjects require hands-on activity. And the other program related to social sciences, students have remained at their home and are studying online. So we are receiving, for instance, the complaints from those students learning online that they would like to come, and yet the purpose of calling one part of student is for us to be able to control and to apply the COVID-19 preventive measures, including accommodation, because we couldn't accommodate all the students if they were to come, and also to control the physical distancing and the social distancing in accommodation in the classroom environment. So that decision is for the safety of all students, but you understand that it already discriminated those students. Why do they feel that they are discriminated? Of course, these are the challenges that were reported, that some students may not have reliable internet connectivity, and that some students maybe don't have a smartphone and computers, and we think that is already discriminating. So what we are doing to still support and avoid stigmatization of one part of student is to encourage our lecturer to support student online. For instance, we have requested all lecturers to create a WhatsApp group where they will just receive the feedback from students and their queries and their complaints and address them. And whenever they can't do it, then they can submit to the institutional, the college management. We ourselves as managers, we have created the WhatsApp group where we stay in touch with students so that we support. So when I come, for instance, to those who may be infected, fortunately, we are not having a case of infection of student being infected and carrying the COVID-19 infection. But if it happens, for instance, we have created, if it happens right here on campus, we have created isolated room. We have trained staff members and members in the COVID-19 task force who are ready to handle the case and reduce the psychological stresses associated with the infection of the COVID-19 pandemic. So in the isolation room, we have created a conducive environment where someone who can be isolated there can feel comfortable with support of counselor and the other staff who we think they are ready and specialized to support the individuals. So that's what I can share. Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Florie Kamir. I can see that Edwidge Kamir has raised her hand. So maybe Edwidge, can you add quickly what you want to add? We are running out of time. Can you quickly give your intervention in 1 minute before we wrap up?
Yes, Bernard, is only to add small information. It means about discrimination is to say that all the students, we are explaining them that it is to be aware of those measures, maybe not discrimination, because only students who are doing biology and chemistry are the only ones where we are making a blended learning, even for those students who are on campus. For example, in science, they are conducting only practices in the laboratory. Then we are using also online. And for others, it means There are, as principal said, the WhatsApp group, SMS, emails, everywhere they want any information, we are there to help. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Edwidge Kamire, and thank you so much, all speakers and the participants for being attending to this webinar. And as we are, for the sake of keeping with the time, let's move quickly to closing remarks by Mr. Saliu. Sir, can you hear me, Saliu?
Yes, Bernard, I can hear you very well.
All right, can you quickly give the closing remarks and we wrap up the webinar?
Thank you very much, Bernard, for having chaired that session. And thank you very much, everyone, for your time and being with us in the last 1 hour and a half. Let me, at this stage, acknowledge the supportive presence, as usual, of Director Anne-Therese Mbongjata, Director of the Eastern Africa Regional Office of UNESCO, based in Nairobi. So, Director, we are very grateful for your honorable presence. We have just listened carefully to the various presenters from Rwanda, and I thank them all for sharing information regarding the pre and post-COVID-19 challenges they have experienced in relation with their teachers' well-being, health, and the need for psychosocial support, but also regarding the pedagogical and technical aspects. Of course, by technical aspect, I mostly mean the use of ICT. The theme is very important and timely, as many meetings have been held focusing on what teachers should do to support learners, but not much has been said on support to teachers. As we all know, when teachers' support is assured, they can support students and communities. As UNESCO ILO recommends, supporting teachers' motivation and well-being is very important in school reopening and afterwards. School heads and teachers, as well as learners, need to feel safe before they come to school. Prevention measures and psychosocial support need to be in place to help them feel safe and protect their willingness. Those measures include, as we heard from the presentations, sanitation enhancement, regular testing, reducing class sizes to enable social distancing, providing face masks to teachers and students, and so on and so forth. We note that this responsive support has been made easier by the involvement of teachers and school or university community members. I really like the idea of COVID-19 Task Force Committee and the close collaboration between the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health. While distance learning is seen as a solution towards providing education to keep teachers and students safe, the internet access is still a challenge in some areas, especially in rural ones, as mentioned by one presenter. Of course, compared to many African countries, is regarding connectivity. But let us pray for zero internet connectivity challenge. Still, it is worth mentioning that where connectivity is a big issue, it is good to build on existing resources, addressing teachers and learners' access to appropriate media and technology needs. Rwanda has shown a great experience and expertise in all these above-mentioned domains, as shown in all the presentations. For instance, we learned that Rwanda has more than 20 years of experience in distance training program. It then goes without saying that the recommendations arising from this very productive webinar will constitute a great takeaway among the participants who will adopt and adapt them to the various contexts of their respective countries. Minimizing the risk also includes prioritizing classes that are preparing major exams. Teachers need to be supported for playing a role in ensuring the right information flows to community. We have learned from the presentations that psychosocial support is not expected only from the authorities, but from all parts of the society. This comprehensive support can reduce drastically stigmatization. Finally, I wish to thank all the panelists, Dr. Edwidge Kamire, Dr. Florian Nsaganwimana, Alexis Habineza, Mr. Teofil Sangano. I also thank all participants for their active contribution to the success of this webinar, which has allowed us to learn from each other and share experiences. Again, thank you very much for being with us. We wish you a very nice day and safe and successful school reopening. Thank you very much, Bernard.
All right, thank you so much, Saliu. Maybe the final announcement is that colleagues have shared links to resources for this webinar, as well as links to previous webinars in the chat room. So participants who may be interested, they may check those links and they engage with those resources. And thank you so much again, everyone. And as the Yumiko, the director of the International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa, highlighted, this is one webinar in a series of webinars that are coming in November and December. And this topic will continue to be discussed, looking for a perspective from different countries. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice evening. And it was a great pleasure to be with you. And thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And Teresa, are you still there? Thank you so much. We should have asked
Thank
you
you.
to say a few words. Oh, she's